Good morning, everyone. I'm Christina Pereira, and this is part of our Healthy Mind, Healthy Body series. And this is about connections in rewriting your script on trauma. So, during these times, what we're finding is reconnecting and redirecting trauma in a new way to discover yourself is one of the most beneficial things that we can all do during this time. So, what we immediately need if there is a disaster, and in this case, we're talking about a nationwide disaster. First thing that we all need is space. We also need to feel safe. Safety usually comes from friends and loved ones. So, a lot of times, what happens is during these times that people will say, you need to go see a therapist. And that begins, over and over. And, people will highly recommend that. When someone is searching for and looking to feel safe, a stranger is not the first person, which isn't to say that therapy is essential, but it's really not one of the first things you want to do. A person needs to feel that they can communicate with close friends and family where they're immediately going to feel safe. They also need a little bit of time to process everything and what that means to them, but it is imperative there is follow up. And sort of throughout the process, you can, notice what's happening with the person behind the scenes and can jump in as needed, but you have to then begin a follow up where you can introduce therapy. So, what can happen is that the anxiety and the beginning of the road of trauma is the person may try to avoid what they would consider dangerous places, as well as dangerous situations. And in that, they would like to control the environment around them. Now, in this situation, the world may feel as a dangerous place. And because we are asked to social distance and to stay at home, that can really manifest in a way where people will not want to leave the home. So it really comes down to the person's response and how they have dealt with previous traumas. So when we look at national disasters, um, typically it comes up as 9/11, Sandy Hook, Columbine shootings, and Hurricane Sandy. So when people have gone through this, a couple of things happen. Because of the previous experience in it, a lot of people can become very resilient. So they learned through this naturally, through their own way to handle it, how to deal with it. So the expectation would be, in some cases, this would work out, they'd be able to manage this because they've already been through something similar. However, the risk is that second time trauma is really when things can start to unravel. So we have to be very, very mindful of that. So trauma, what happens to us? We all naturally go into these states when we experience or actually witness a devastating event. Now, a devastating event typically is something that potentially can be life altering, a massive car accident, a tragedy, witnessing someone being harmed, or even, you know, someone dying in front of us. Our natural response that our body does is we get into either a fight mode, we freeze up, or we leave. These are all very natural reactions. So when the trauma hits, if you look at what happens with the brain, it automatically hits that stress hormone, get a racing heart rate, and that's when those responses happen. The interesting thing is we cannot feel these emotional reactions and relaxation at the same time. So they are two different ways that we handle things. What we are finding that has been extremely successful, and there is very much tons and tons of research that's been done with the power of connection. Social support, connection, it's a staple of life. Everyone, always felt, what do we really need? Food, water, shelter, and air. But they have also added in connection. Virtual connections can prevent post-traumatic stress disorder. This is amazing. And when they have done one particular research that they have done is they've taken people that may have been in traumatic situations and have them in MRIs to watch how the brain functions. And they would throw a tennis ball to each person. When they stopped throwing the tennis ball, that person interpreted that as a lack of connection. With that lack of connection, the brain chemistry changed, and they were able to witness this through and examine it through an MRI machine. Connections give us strength and resilience when faced with trauma and loss. And virtually, looking at someone else's face, seeing their expression, and that connection helps to alleviate the symptoms. We're all wired to feel supported, valued, and socially connected. It's just part of our makeup. When we experience multiple traumas, therapy and social support can enhance the emotional regulation and soothe trauma-driven fears. Virtual connections allows us to spend more quality time with each other. When you are in a Zoom session or FaceTime, anything that's done virtually, the one main thing that I notice is that it's real direct interaction. Most times when we're interacting with others, you will notice that the person maybe you're talking to is on the phone, they're texting. That takes away from the connection. So it may be more intermittent live than it is virtually. Most people tend to stay focused when they are virtually communicating with somebody versus being on the phone, and they have longer connections and conversations. The social brain and the need for secure attachments. Again, it goes back to how we're wired. It's in our DNA. The brain is an attached system drawn to being with others. Some people are selective. They may only want one or two people in our lives. Others have a need for a large group. So when we have more deeper connections, the prediction and the research has indicated that we have better overall health. Social networks affect our health and happiness. Who would have known? So many of these things have been around forever. People tend to gravitate more towards, I think in the past, Facebook, and which is just, sharing their experience, getting feedback from others, but now we have so much more. So pain is the feeling, suffering is the effect that the pain gives us. If we can endure pain, which we all are able to do, we can live without suffering. So if you are physically harmed, and that can go in many different ways, we don't have to suffer. When the pain subsides, we can recover. If we go back and live in the pain, that's what brings in the suffering. And we do have control over that in our minds. And some people may need more help than others. When we have a physical trauma and emotional trauma, our brains get activated the same way. We feel pain. It may manifest its way in multiple areas, but we still feel the same type of pain. Pain from a lack of connection or losing someone that is very close to us has that same feeling. So, triggers of past events with our senses can go back and create that physical and emotional pain. So, I'll use the example of 9/11. So, for people wherever they were that day, they were aware of what was happening, where they were sitting, what they felt, and if actually in the area, what they saw. If they saw smoke, if they smelt it, that can then, in the end, be a trigger. The people I worked with in Sandy Hook, the largest trigger across the board with the people that were in the building was the intercom. The intercom with the crackling sound would be chilling for them. So that would be something that was a challenge, so much so that they changed the intercom system for the teachers. However, if they were to go into another school, they still experience the same thing. So they had to work on desensitizing themselves because that sense became so overwhelming. Studies have monitored our brains. So when connection is lost, our brain chemistry changes to a physical and emotional strain on our body. They have also discovered that the use of like Tylenol or aspirin with treatment of physical pain also subsides the symptoms of emotional pain. So it's very real. When people say, move on, get over it, if someone could do that, of course they would do it. We have to keep our heart healthy. Broken heart syndrome, okay? So it is stress induced and it has an effect on our heart due to an emotional pain, a loss, a breakup, anything, or anyone that is no longer in our life can truly cause broken heart syndrome. This can start to break down the functioning of the heart. If we're able to recognize it, we can work with it. So, first time I noticed this was my aunt who had ducks. When one duck died, shortly thereafter, the other one would. This doesn't mean that people are not going to be able to live without someone. They have to recognize the effect that it has on them and immediately reconnect with others. By reconnecting, you're creating new memories, and the other ones with time will eventually fade and subside. It doesn't mean that we're not going to feel the loss, but we're not going to feel it to the extent that is wearing down and the effects that it's going to have on our heart. So you redirect that pain into new friends, reconnecting, maybe reconnecting with people that we haven't spoken to in a while. And when you do that, there has been a common connection and something that kept you with that person. It's going to bring you back to those memories. And it's all about rewiring our brain, which is something we can all do. So now we can open up our circle of connections, and it can be done virtually. There are so many outlets out there right now. So we're going to let it be virtual for now. We don't really have a choice. I mean, social distancing is not necessarily with strangers going to allow for those types of connections that are necessary. If you go on any site, everything is now, for the time being, done virtually. Try speed friending. If you ever wanted to take a course, take that course now. One of the benefits in New York City is the fact that education is free. That's a gift, a very special one. So you want to use your time productively and in a way that you can enhance your life. So as we move on and things change and the world starts to open up, you want to be able to take that special new quality or education that you have and use it in the new world. Have the courage to do something that maybe you always wanted to try, but didn't feel like that you could. The nice thing is, when you can go in virtually, you don't have to show yourself. If you initially feel some anxiety or stage fright, you don't have to show yourself. If it's not for you, you click your mouse and you leave. There is no commitment. There is no one saying anyone has to do anything. Eventbrite has a ton of different things that occur on a daily basis. Classes, concerts, everything that we have enjoyed is now available to us virtually. And again, it's a good opportunity to discover new interests. You never know in life until you try something on. So today's an opportunity to get better. Don't waste it. Let's live our lives. No one can let this sort of freeze. I'm going to go back to that. If you remain in a frozen state, you will not allow yourself to be open to new opportunities. Stay involved, stay present. Again, use this opportunity to put yourself out there. Some people are discovering that they would, quote, say that they are introverts. And really, in fact, they are more outgoing than they give themselves credit for. Using this break to become stronger for our new world. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Live, love, connect, and recover. So, personal habits of those who have overcome 9/11, Sandy Hook. People have been very, very resilient. We don't give ourselves enough credit for the fact that we can get back on our feet. Someone falls off the horse, you get back on. You have a car accident, you get back in that car. Right now, living in pause is just that. But we are all eventually going to be able to go back out. Perhaps it's going to look different, but we're going to be able to do that. And we want to make sure that before it gets to that, that you have not become traumatized by this. All of us stronger together, all right? New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, all of these areas work together, and there is strength with everyone feeling the same thing. It's just our responses and our reactions. We're all stronger together. Set some goals. Make sure you stick with the routine. You're not alone in this. This is your life. Live it. We can still live our lives, and we can live it in a different way, and maybe in a way that we actually feel happier. So in the prevention of trauma and loss and PTSD, some people may be a little bit more susceptible. So somebody who has gone through multiple traumas and has had challenges in that might be more prone to getting into a post-traumatic stress disorder and then experiencing these flashbacks. Others that typically are a little bit more resilient and just have a different personality might not be as prone to this. But this is the strength. We're all the strength for each other. And we're going to survive. And it's going to be a very different world. I believe it's going to be a better one. Please connect.